They didn't even bother to lie well, just copy-pasted the same excuse, word for word, like I wouldn't notice. I'm Nathan, 32, and I've never been the center of attention type. I've always been the guy who quietly shows up, pays the bill, picks up your dry cleaning when you forget, and somehow ends up being the designated driver at every family event, even when it wasn't supposed to be an event. I wasn't the golden child. That was my cousin Tasha, or maybe my brother Owen, or honestly, whoever had the loudest drama that month. But I was the one who could be counted on, the one they all appreciated in passing texts when rent was due or someone needed to use my Netflix. It was subtle, really, how you go from being part of the family to just being the financial safety net stitched underneath their messy lives. You don't notice it at first. You just think, well, they're struggling right now, and you help because that's what family's supposed to do. But then your birthday rolls around, and everyone suddenly has plans, except not with you. It started 2 weeks before when I sent out a message to the family group chat. Hey, thinking of doing a birthday dinner, nothing fancy. Just a table at Amici's next Friday. Let me know if you can make it. I even offered to cover the bill. That part wasn't surprising. I always covered the bill. They'd stopped even reaching for their wallets years ago. The replies trickled in slowly, mostly thumbs-up emojis or the classic, "I'll try to be there," from my mom, which was code for "I won't, but I don't want to argue about it right now." By the day of, I had only 2 confirmed guests, my Aunt Rhonda and her husband Paul. And even then, Rhonda had texted the night before, "If Paul's gout doesn't act up, we'll see you then, sweetheart." I should have seen it coming. But stupidly, I still dressed up, ironed my nicest shirt, reserved the big table, told the hostess we'd be at least 10, maybe more. She smiled politely and sat me near the window with enough place settings to suggest optimism. At 6 p.m., I sat alone, sipping water. At 6:15, the first message arrived. It was from my brother. "Hey man, something came up. We'll celebrate another time." I read it once, then twice. Something about it felt oddly impersonal. No explanation, no apologies, no real effort. 5 minutes later, my mom's message came in. Same wording, same punctuation. Something came up, "We'll celebrate another time." Then my uncle, then my cousin, one by one, as if coordinated. I stared at my phone, watching the chain of indifference unfold like a lazy production line. I stayed, ordered a pasta dish I didn't even want, told the waiter I'd wait a bit longer in case anyone else came. No one did. I paid the bill, left a good tip, walked out of the restaurant with a plastic bag of leftovers and the kind of quiet fury that doesn't boil, it freezes. Makes everything still, numb. The parking lot was mostly empty by then. I sat in my car with the engine running, scrolling mindlessly. And that's when I saw it, my cousin Tasha's Instagram story. A boomerang of her holding a party hat over her French bulldog, Nibbles. Caption, "Happy birthday, Nibbles." There they all were. My mom, laughing with a slice of cake. My brother Owen, helping tie a bow on the dog's collar. My aunt, holding a champagne flute. The same people who had something come up. They were all there. For a dog. I don't know how long I sat there. At some point, my hands just moved on their own. I opened my banking app, clicked on the scheduled rent transfers for my mom's place, my brother's temporary loan repayment plan, the auto draft for my aunt's phone bill, the one I'd been covering since she got hacked and had to cancel her credit cards. I canceled every single one. Then I opened the utility dashboard. Gas, power, water. Off. Not now. But by morning, they'd wake up to silence, and not the peaceful kind. And finally, I took the spare car key off the ring on my dashboard. It was for Owen's secondhand Audi, the one I'd co-signed for because he was getting back on his feet. I put it in my jacket pocket and drove home with my headlights off, the streets dark and quiet. I didn't send a message. I didn't comment. I didn't rage text the group chat or ask why. I let the silence sit. I let them wonder. The next morning, my phone buzzed. My mom, then Owen, then Tasha, all calling. I didn't answer. The group chat exploded with, "Is something wrong with the utilities? Nate, are you awake? Did the bank mess up your auto pay?" And then my personal favorite from my brother. "Bro, what's going on?" Nibbles' party was kind of last minute. "You're overreacting." Overreacting. That was the word that caught in my throat. Later that day, I saw my mom posted a cryptic Facebook status. "Some people will punish you just for not being available on their schedule. Remember, family isn't conditional." It had 4 likes and one passive-aggressive comment from Rhonda saying, "Maybe if you appreciated him, he'd still pick up the phone." I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I started looking at what else was under my name. Whose name was on the insurance policies, the gym memberships, the car registration. I realized something. I wasn't their family member. I was their infrastructure. Their walking, talking, rent-paying, utility-covering infrastructure. And I was about to disappear. That evening, my phone lit up again. This time, it wasn't just calls and texts, it was voicemails. Long ones. Rambling ones. Some angry, some pleading. My brother left one that started with, "Look, man," and spiraled into a guilt trip about how I'd always held money over the family's head, as if being responsible somehow made me a villain. My mom left 2 messages. The first was soft, sickly sweet. "Nathan, honey, this isn't like you. We all love you. Please don't do this. Just call me." The second, 2 hours later, had a different tone. "I don't know what kind of grudge you're holding, but punishing your own mother? That's a new low, even for you." A new low? For me? I didn't reply. I couldn't, not yet. I needed time to process, to keep myself from reacting emotionally. Because for once, I didn't want to just cut the cord. I wanted to expose it. Every twisted wire they'd tangled around me over the years. Every fake favor. Every manufactured emergency. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted them to sit in the dark long enough to realize how much power I'd given them and how little they'd earned it. So I made a list. It started with simple things. The phone plan under my name canceled. I didn't even warn them. Just logged in, hit remove user, and watched the confirmation email roll in. I imagined my cousin Tasha refreshing Instagram at the dog park and suddenly losing signal. My uncle yelling into his phone before realizing it wasn't on anymore. My brother? Oh, he'd probably try to blame it on the provider. Classic Owen. Then the car. I didn't take it back right away. I let him sit with it. Drive it a few more days. Feel normal. Then, on Saturday night, I parked down the block, walked to his driveway, and calmly drove off with it. The spare key still worked. It wasn't even locked. I left a sticky note on the windshield of his second car, the one he never drives because it's missing a tail light. Since I'm just a wallet, consider this a budget cut. By Monday, the panic began to spill from private texts into public performance. Owen posted on Facebook, "Family means loyalty. But apparently that only applies until you make more money than everyone else and suddenly you're better than us." He didn't tag me, of course. Cowards rarely do. But people in the comments knew exactly who he meant. A few even liked the post. His girlfriend commented, "You deserve better, babe." Better than what? A brother who paid your bills? Who funded your move 3 cities away? Who covered your medical bills when you couldn't afford insurance? I didn't respond. Instead, I emailed the landlord, my mother's landlord, actually. She'd been living in a duplex I owned outright, but technically the lease had been in my name for legal reasons. It had always been a handshake deal. No rent. Just help your family, she said. For 4 years, I did. Covered taxes, maintenance, even the occasional repainting. But now, I sent the email. This is official notice that the current tenant has 30 days to vacate the property unless she wishes to begin paying fair market rent, effective immediately. I attached photos of the property, a suggested rent agreement, and the updated account information for payment. I didn't even send her a copy. I knew it would find her. It did, within 48 hours, judging by the furious email I received from her with the subject line, "Wow. Really? Yes. Really." It was like poking a beehive after years of them buzzing around me, convinced I'd never swat back. Suddenly, I was cruel, heartless, overreacting. My mom, my brother, my cousin each had their own version of the same story, trying to twist the narrative that I was abandoning them, that I'd changed, that I was punishing them for one mistake. One mistake? Funny, because when I scrolled back through old texts, there wasn't one. There were hundreds. My birthday wasn't the beginning. It was just the first time I opened my eyes. The time they asked me to co-sign for Owen's car because he was starting a new job, and then quit 3 weeks later to explore crypto. The time Tasha asked me to front her vet bill because Nibbles is like my baby, and then posted selfies from a weekend spot trip. The time Mom called me crying because the water got shut off again, and I wired her money without even asking questions. Every time I didn't ask. Every time I filled in the silence with trust and got drained. And the worst part? The guilt. The quiet, constant guilt that if I stopped helping, I would be the bad guy. That maybe I was being selfish. that maybe I was the problem. But standing there in the dark hallway of my apartment, phone buzzing with calls I no longer had to answer, I realized something. Guilt only works when you believe you owe them something. I didn't. Not anymore. And just when things started to settle, a knock at the door. Not loud. Just steady. Rhythmic. I opened it. Standing there in the hallway was Owen. His hoodie was half-zipped, his eyes bloodshot not from crying, but from stress. He held his phone in one hand, shaking slightly. "You took my car," he said. No hello. No apology. Just that. I leaned against the doorframe. Technically, my car. But go on. He looked at me, jaw tight. "This isn't how you fix things, man." I almost laughed. "Fix things? You mean how you all lied and ditched me on my birthday and then threw a party for a literal dog? That wasn't the plan. Tasha said it was just going to be a few people and—" "Save it," I cut in. "You could have called. You didn't. You could have texted something real. You didn't. You could have shown up at Amici's. You didn't. But now you want to talk because the gravy train came off the rails." He flinched. "Good." He rubbed his temple. "Look, we messed up. I get it. But you don't have to burn everything down just to prove a point." I stared at him. "No," I said. "I don't have to. I want to." And then I shut the door. But I knew it wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. Because now they were desperate. And desperate people? They start making moves they can't take back. The next move didn't come from Owen, it came from my mother. 3 days after that knock on my door, a thick envelope showed up in my mailbox. No return address, just my name scrawled in familiar cursive. Inside was a letter, handwritten, 2 pages. And at the bottom of the second, folded with forced precision, was a faded photo of me, maybe 5 or 6 years old, smiling with a birthday cake in front of me and my mom standing behind, her hands on my shoulders like a picture-perfect parent. The letter started with, "I don't know when you became this cold, Nathan, but I miss my son." It continued with an elaborate retelling of my childhood. How much she sacrificed. How she worked nights to buy me that bike. How she never asked for anything in return but love and understanding. She wrote about losing your dad too soon and how hard it was to raise boys alone. And then the pivot came right on cue. "You always seem to understand, Nate. That's what made you special. You were the strong one. You never complained. You just helped. You always helped." That part hurt more than I expected. Because she was right. I did help. But not out of strength. Out of obligation. Out of fear. Out of a deep, twisted belief that if I didn't carry their weight, no one else would. And worse, that maybe I wasn't worth anything to them unless I did. She ended the letter with, "I hope you find your way back to this family before it's too late. We still love you. Even if you've forgotten how to love us back." It was a guilt grenade wrapped in nostalgia and tied with a bow of martyrdom. And for a second, just a second, I felt it working. I felt the old strings pull. Then I looked at the photo again. It wasn't the one I remembered. Because in my memory, that birthday had ended with me crying. My cake smashed. Owen had thrown it off the table because I got the bigger present. And my mom? She scolded me for making a scene. That photo was the only good part of that day. A free frame before the yelling started. A moment weaponized now to manipulate me. That was the turning point. The next morning, I boxed up the photo and letter and dropped them off at her porch unopened. Unfolded. No note. Just silence, returned to cinder. And that silence didn't last. Because the following week, they escalated. They sent someone to talk to me. Well, ambushed me, more like it. It was at a local cafe I used to visit on Thursdays during my lunch break. I hadn't changed my routine, which in hindsight was my mistake. I was sipping an Americano and reading a book when I heard a voice I hadn't heard in years. "A book? Still pretending you're too smart for the rest of us, huh?" I looked up. It was Uncle Darren. If you've ever met someone who managed to combine sleaze with a sense of entitlement so thick it should come with a warning label, you know the type. Darren had been cut off from half the family for borrowing money he never paid back, but somehow he always slithered back in during drama, like a vulture circling a fresh wound. He pulled out the chair across from me without asking and sat down like we were old buddies catching up. I told them not to send a letter. I said, "Nate's a man. You talk to men face to face. But your mom, she's got a soft heart, you know? That woman raised you." I didn't reply. I just stared at him. Calm. Blank. He took my silence as an invitation to continue. "Now, I don't know what kind of tantrum this is, or what they said to get you this mad, but you're hurting people who love you, kid. Your mom's a wreck. Your brother's sleeping on my couch. You really gonna keep this up?" I blinked slowly. Is that the part you were sent here to say? Or is the guilt trip just a bonus? His smirk dropped slightly. I came because I care, he said. But if you keep going down this road, you're going to find yourself real alone, Nathan. That's not what family does. I leaned forward. No, I said. That's exactly what family does. My family, at least, pretends silence is love. Pretends obligation is connection. Pretends guilt is currency. He sat back, mouth twitching. I'm not the bad guy here, he muttered. You were never even part of the story, I said, picking up my cup. He didn't leave quietly. He huffed, muttered something under his breath, and knocked over the creamer tray as he stormed out. The barista gave me a look. I shrugged and returned to my book. But that wasn't the end. That was just the preview. Because 2 days later, I got a notification from my bank. Someone had attempted to log into my account. Then again, and again. Password reset requests. Access denied. I changed everything. Locked it all down. Contacted my bank and flagged every account under my name. I'd grown up with these people. I knew how desperate they could get when things stopped being convenient. And then came the text that confirmed it all. From Owen. You think you're better than us? Fine. Just remember who changed your diapers. Who fed you. You owe this family everything. And when mom's gone, don't show up crying. I stared at the screen. For a long time. That last line? That was it. That was the line they always used when they needed to guilt me into coming back. When mom's gone, it wasn't just a warning. It was a threat. They still thought I could be manipulated. Still thought love meant debt. Still thought I could be scared into returning. But this time, I wasn't walking away. This time, I was cutting them out. And the way I'd do it would leave no room for comeback, no misunderstanding, no public Facebook martyrdom. They were about to feel what life without me really looked like. I didn't respond to Owen's message. Not with a text, not with a call, not with a single word. Instead, I logged into the financial management software I use for my consulting work, the same one where I'd set up all the recurring payments, emergency transfers, and family-linked accounts. For years, I had folders labeled Family Support, subcategories named after the people I was helping: Mom Utilities, Owen's Auto, Tasha Pet Emergencies. What started as short-term help slowly became permanent lifelines. None of them ever asked when it would stop. They just assumed it wouldn't. That day, I deleted the entire folder. But I wasn't done. I spent the next week preparing my final move. Not a revenge stunt, not a dramatic explosion, something clean, unmistakable, permanent. I sold the duplex my mother was living in. It was entirely in my name. I bought it years ago after landing my first major client. I offered it to her as a temporary place to stay while she got back on her feet after a bad investment. But there was never a plan to move out, never a talk about rent, never a gesture of appreciation. The place had become a monument to her entitlement, and I was tired of preserving it. I didn't evict her. I sold the entire property to a development firm that was buying up half the neighborhood. They paid well above market value. They asked no questions. I signed, closed, and let the process move on its own. 2 weeks later, she got the notice from the new owners. I expected a storm. What I got was silence for 3 whole days. Then the voicemail came. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. Her voice was cold, controlled. So that's it. You're cutting me out like I'm nothing. Like I didn't raise you. You sold my home? Over a birthday dinner? She didn't say she was sorry. Didn't mention the lies. The dog party. The years of manipulating me into footing the bill for their lives while mine was quietly shrinking in the background. No, to her, I had just committed the betrayal. The unthinkable. I'd chosen myself. That was the part she couldn't forgive. I let that voicemail sit unanswered, just like all the others. But I wasn't done yet. I filed paperwork to separate every legal tie I had to them. No more co-signed accounts. No more shared plans. I even changed the beneficiary on my life insurance, something I hadn't thought about until I looked and realized it still had Owen listed in case of emergency. I donated the car I'd taken back from him. Not sold, donated. He'd already trashed the interior anyway. I switched phone numbers. New SIM, new carrier. I gave my new number to 3 people: my best friend, my boss, and my therapist. And then I moved. Not far. Just enough. New address. New building with a security gate. No access unless you're buzzed in. I didn't post about it. Didn't announce it. I just disappeared from their reach. They didn't take it well. My cousin Tasha tried to post a series of Instagram stories about toxic family members who forget where they came from, clearly aimed at me. One photo showed her holding a crying Nibbles with the caption, "He doesn't understand why Uncle Nate doesn't love him anymore." I almost laughed. Owen took it further. He tracked down a mutual friend and tried to ask them to pass me a message. The friend refused. Told him flat out, "He doesn't owe you anything." My mom, though, she didn't fight publicly. She started sending letters again, once a week, handwritten, always with the same tone. Not quite apologies, more like rehearsed sympathy. She'd start soft, then veer into gaslighting. "I never meant to hurt you, but you were always sensitive." Or, "I just wish you remembered everything I did for you." Sometimes she'd include photos. Old ones. Me and Owen as kids. Me and her at graduation. Always smiling. Frozen moments used as proof of love. I burned the first letter. I threw away the second. By the fifth, I stopped opening them altogether. And then, silence. No letters. No calls. No attempts. For the first time in my adult life, I experienced what it was like to breathe without guilt sitting on my chest. I started going to the gym again. I began writing, something I hadn't done in years. I volunteered at a nonprofit that helps young adults age out of the foster system. They were stunned by how easily I managed finances and spreadsheets. I didn't tell them why I was so good at budgeting and stretching resources. It didn't matter anymore. It took 3 months before I saw one of them in public. Owen. He was standing outside a strip mall, talking to someone loudly on the phone. He looked thinner, older. His shoes were scuffed. His energy was brittle. I was about to turn away when he saw me. For a second, he just stared. Then he walked toward me. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just tired. "Hey," he said. I said nothing. He looked down. "You're really gone, huh?" Still, I didn't speak. He stopped himself. "Forget it." He turned to leave, then paused and looked back over his shoulder. "You know, Mom still checks the mailbox. Hopes one of those envelopes will have something from you." I looked at him then. Really looked. And said the last words I would ever say to any of them. "She already got everything I had to give." He didn't respond. Just nodded once and walked away. And that was the end. There was no grand reconciliation. No dramatic courtroom scene. No apology that suddenly made everything worth forgiving. Just me, finally free. The last birthday I spent with them, I sat alone in a restaurant, humiliated and invisible. The first birthday I spent without them, I sat in my new apartment, ordered my favorite takeout, and got 3 video calls from people who actually cared. No guilt. No performance. Just peace. And as I closed my laptop, I realized walking away wasn't the hard part. It was admitting that I should have done it a long, long time ago.